Alright, welcome back to another adventure of our Wandering Adventures, and this is the van build series. So we're here ready to go for our next little bits and pieces. Now the last episode what we did was we actually went through and we were prepping for sound deadening, but what we sort of thought was, because we actually saw a couple of little leaks and Talia actually went through the van and checked. There's a couple of places that she'd said she'd seen spots, but one of the things that she actually discovered was up in here, because we took the actual door away, is actually a nice
antenna hole. Nice
little antenna hole, which would have been basically leaking down here, because we'd had this back, and it's been dry ever since. So we think it's that. You know, I had a pretty good look on the outside, and I'll show you again in a moment. It actually, I think, is probably the spot. But the other place that she said that actually makes sense when you look at them too is on the outside, which is, those are the little like pins that hold it in.
The black trim.
Yeah, so the black trim is this stuff here. And so that's actually held on there by those little suckers there. But as Talia said,
they got watermarks, and I had seen on YouTube that maybe there was going to be some like water leaking in there. So before we do the walls, before we do anything, I'd like to seal up, make sure there's no water coming in at all.
Yeah, so we're thinking...
do that with a silicone.
Yeah, so we're thinking that we will seal that up there. We'll seal these through on both sides. Before we look to do the sound deadening, then we've got a box of sound deadening. We might get it done in this episode, but probably not. What we'll do is we'll put the sound deadening up, but we'll mark also where we want the windows on, hopefully on this episode. Okay, you got that ladder? You can hold the ladder? Yeah, just hold it just in case.
Ooh.
And that's the spot. I'm just going to have a quick look. Doesn't look like there's anything else up there for now. Obviously a bit sun bleached, but I reckon he's the only sucker. I mean, obviously that there is the an antenna holding, but I reckon if we bog that right up from the outside first, and then what we'll do is we'll get it on the inside, and that should actually solve it.
The top of that rail, that'll stop that leak coming off too.
Okay, so we think also in these little holes here, there's the rail.
It's only those two bits down the end
so
that are leaking.
Those two?
Yeah.
Not that?
No. It was
okay.
Like a waterfall.
So we think those two, because there's the rail behind that holds the door. So what we'll do, just while we're filming, is I'll just come out and you swing that back, and then I'll just grab the towel. Okay. And what I'll do is I'll then get on from the inside. Okay. I'll have a look from the inside through the passenger side. You can't really see it. Okay. Alright. Well, I don't think you can see it any better. I mean, maybe here, lie this down. Oh, okay, I've got it, okay, watch out of the way. What I'm thinking is, so the rail doesn't go over the top at all, but see how it's actually a bit tighter up this end, a bit looser up that end. I'm wondering if it's because it's getting in.
Well, I just think that where the bolts are to hold it in, it leaks there. So if we can try to gap maybe the whole top of it, just gap in with this crack.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, if we just gap the crack.
There's no gap the crack. Yeah, alright. Okay, so what we're doing, do you want to just hold this over my left shoulder? Shine him in there. So just like in that way. Yep. Because when I get my fingers in there, I can actually move that bolt, and that's not so much, and that definitely moves. So I actually think
that's our water leaks.
Yeah, and then so we just need to find a socket that will go in there, tighten them up. and that'll pull that back on. I don't actually think though we need to really, I mean we could silicone it, but like we can't actually get in there at all to, you know what I mean? Because this old panel here doesn't come off. But I reckon that all we need to do is just tighten it up, and I reckon that's our leak. Yeah. But there's nothing on the other side, is there?
No.
Oh yeah.
No.
Oh, there's no.
No, it was only this side. That was
okay.
Broken.
Right. Well, I reckon that's what we start off with. Alrighty, so a quick update. What we've done so far is the first thing that we did was actually we did this outside. So I'm just going to go outside and have a look at this. So as I said in the earlier part, we had the challenge with this here because it was a little bit loose. So we did the bolts up on the inside. There's around about 4 or 5 of them. But then what we did, because there still was a gap along the top, so we actually ran some silicone along the top and then down the back. So the idea is that it seals up that bead, because what was happening, or creates a bead, because what was happening was water was leaking in there and it was going through the hole with a screw. So we fixed that one. And then the other thing is, which I think we said earlier, this trim here, as Talia said, has a little punches through the wall on the other side. So we've just gone around now and if we have a look at these, I've just dabbed some silicone on them all the way around, and they go all the way back, all the way forward, and then in the door. So anybody that hasn't seen the inside of the Sprinter door, obviously it's the mechanics and so forth for the door itself, but then the further strips just there, so we've dabbed the silicone around those just to minimise that likelihood of the water leaking through there. And then if we just come in here, we can see that through here there's those little screws. Now with those screws, because we've sealed the top, now the water won't leak down and through here. And obviously we have those there. Now the next step is that because we've cut a couple of the, we'll take a couple of the bolts out from here, we're now going to seal those with sealant and then probably silicone them up. And then what we'll do is we'll hit the rust patches, so a bit of surface rust, even though that looks more rusty, it's more sort of a bit dirt than rust. Hit all that up with some normal rust and then we'll seal it. And then I reckon that's us for another episode.